while Billy is sharing his presentation, I just would like to say we have three groups. The first group, they will look at in greater depth. They will go into what is connected neighborhood at, you could say, strategic level, and how it might work in the context of Angus. So that's the first group. The second group, then they will show what a 20 minutes neighborhood might mean. They zoom in into Monofils and Moniki. They will show two different set of scenarios. And then we will finish with the last group looking at Kelas on its own. What is a local rural living might mean. Okay, Billy, the floor is yours.
So my group was tasked with looking at 20-minute neighbourhoods in a rural context, or connected communities, as Angus refers to them, and we were looking at linking of 2 village clusters. So our vision statement was to look at improving the connectivity and sustainability of the settlements through building interrelations among spatial elements whilst maintaining their individuality. We came up with some objectives for this. Sam's already run through this slide, so our objectives were to improve the connectivity, enhance the relationship with the blue and green environments, improve sustainability of the villages with development and densification strategies, improve sustainability and resilience through the use of solar power, and reduce the monotony that you get with developments to try and encourage a range of developers and innovative design. So we started looking at demographics, and we also looked at a series of charrettes that were run by Angus Council from 2014-2017, and it was just the normal issues that arise from those kind of conversations people have about health services, infrastructure, access to schools, digital connections, public transport, loss of jobs, access to affordable housing. So we ran through a series of analysis on the historical background of the different villages, the vernacular character of them, and we went through, and eventually we came upon a series of different village building clusters throughout some areas. And from there, we filtered it down to looking at creating buildings to create clusters within themselves with semi-private, semi-public spaces that could be within the local environment. Then we wanted to analyse the relationship between the villages themselves. So we looked at 20-minute walking distances. This was calculated from a 3 mile an hour walk, taking that 1 mile, so a 1 mile radius around the village centres, and we wanted to see what kind of connection we could draw with that. The purple line running through is a disused railway line that runs through the whole area. From there, we looked at the intersecting points between all these connections and to see if we could come up with 10-minute walking radiuses and what kind of connection that gave us. And we got this connecting link between the villages running alongside the disused railway line, which creates a kind of spine to the whole area. And from there, connecting these up, we got a distance between the furthest reaches of those radiuses of 5 miles, which is around about a half-hour 40-minute cycle ride, depending on your fitness, being such that it is uphill from the southernmost village to the northernmost. What we had noted as well was between the 2 clusters that we've got forming with the 3 villages in the north and the 4 villages in the south, which Kellis, Wellbank, Kingeni and New Bigging, the population in this area was just under 1,000, whereas between Maniki, Craigton and Curtin, it was over 6,000. But the majority of facilities were down in the lower southern area, whereas in the north, they only really had 1 cafe and a school. The schools themselves in Craigton and New Bigging are feeder schools for Carnoustie High School, whereas the school in Wellbank is a feeder school for Moneyfaith. So from that, we wanted to look at the existing potential along the spine that was created with the old railway line, looking to possibly use that as convert it into a cycle track, which has already been done in Angus. So we wanted to see the connectivity from that and the potential areas with Moniki Park. There is another country park further to the north, which is Crombie Park. The green spaces in between, quarry that is in use just now, and the golf course, and what kind of development areas we had, and looking at all these kind of connections, especially from a tourist perspective as well. What kind of connections can we develop for tourism? From this, we came up with some kind of a concept plan for the area, looking at Moniki and the Wellbank area. At first, we looked at what would happen if we did nothing. Then we looked at what would happen if we put all the proposed developments up in Moniki. Then what would happen if we put all the proposed developments down in the Wellbank area. But we came to the conclusion that the best was a combined sharing of development between Wellbank and Kingenny to the south and the three Moniki villages to the north. And this took us on to a proposed development plan, which is in 3 phases. The first phase would be to start development in Wellbank in 2 development areas, plus building a solar farm. The solar farm itself would cost around about 34 million to produce, or you could lease the land out and create an annual index-linked income of 187,000. Construction of the railway, the old railway to a cycle path would commence straight away, and we could have some development of paths, country paths between the 2 villages as well. Looking at a nature reserve, and in the Wellbank development area, just over 200 homes, and in the Moniki development area, just under 300. And as we can see, that's what it would look like between in the bottom round corner here. It's just to give you an idea of the development between all of the villages, with Crombie Park at the north. Then in the second phase of development would be increasing the number of homes with phase 2 in Wellbank to 402, and increasing the number of homes in phase 2 in Moniki up to just over 500. Then with a school extension and the nursery and hub being developed after phase 1. Excuse me, you're going to keep it down. I'm on a.
Oh, right. Okay.
Sorry about that. So with the nursery and development in phase 1, and then school extension to the existing school in Wellbank on phase 3, and then once the population had increased in Moniki, we would look to have a new school and a digital hybrid working community hub being developed there, and the old school would be converted to a nursery. We drew up, based on our concept plan, we drew up a sketched master plan for Moniki. If you have a look, we can see where the existing road had a dogleg. That was mirrored to create a village green, and then the development was moved out from there with some key buildings for public or community use. Then we looked at the same kind of idea, where we looked at the concept plan that we had for Wellbank, and this time we decided just to concentrate on the phase 1 development area closest to Wellbank, where we had those connections. From there, we looked at the connections through, and then the areas where we could look to develop, or where we could put different clusters of housing, and then we drew up a more detailed housing plan with the area of community grounds in between with the suds for some blue infrastructure too. And we've got that permeability running from the existing development through into the new development, and then carrying on through to the phase 2 development to the north and the phase 3 development to the east. Then we finally drew up some design principles for both the developments and applied codes to them. So recapping on where we were with the developments, we looked at the existing developments that we've got and the clusters that were created. And from that, with that 20-minute radius around that, we've created these 2 distinct clusters with that railway line running too, which is now been developed into a cycle path. And so if we look at the development in itself, what you would class as a 20-minute neighbourhood, it doesn't quite reach, but it does touch the other existing villages, and it creates that connection. Then when we take into account, because it's setting, and expand on that for a 20-minute radius all the way around, we've got that connection, and then the final connection with cycling. So what it goes to show is that to actually achieve the kind of developments, we've got to network these villages together. We've got to create these clusters so they can share facilities and then expand on that. But there's only so far people can walk, then they have to rely on their cars. And to facilitate just further sustainable development, then we've got to look for ways of making it much safer for people to cycle between these networked villages that we've got. Then finally, if we go back to what people were asking for, with creating the digital hubs, we've improved the internet services, access to GPs in neither of the areas that we've actually developed. Around about Maniki, we've got about a 25% increase in the population, and around about Wellbank, we've nearly doubled the increase, doubled the population with the developments. But still, in both cases, there's not enough to actually warrant having a GP surgery. But hopefully, with that increased population, there is an increase in local transportation and bus services, which would help people access much easier to GP services. Affordable housing would increase. And if we hadn't done anything, there is a development within Wellbank where there's a golf course, a hotel, and a couple of hundred houses. But we believe that the development we've proposed, there would be far more with the hybrid working, far more job opportunities with the solar farm, the school extensions, new nurseries, and that would increase all the facilities that would be available for people. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Billy.
That's the end of the presentation.
I see someone's put their hand up. We'll take questions at the very end of the session. Kevin's going to summarise everything for us. Just bear with me a second. You're still sharing your screen, Billy, if you could take that off. Thank you.
I apologise for the disturbances there. It was the only room that we could get.
Not a problem. Hassan, if you want to introduce the next project.
Shall we go to the group number 2, please? And you may wish to share your screen. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. And enjoy it, relax, no pressure, please.
Okay, hi, I'm Lakshmi, and I will be presenting for Group 6 from the Sustainable Urban Design module. So the project covered the region of South Anchors, looking at a mixture of peri-urban and semi-rural settlements and how to meet the housing targets within these sensitive areas.
Sorry to interrupt you. Do you want to put it in full screen, please? Sorry.
Sorry. So our project is focused on the spatial growth of Moniki and Monifeed, and our team is working towards the development of the existing area along with designing new housing units for both regions. The objective is to revitalize the traditional character of these places while ensuring efficient connectivity, enhancing services, and preserving the natural environment through strategic planning. So the approach we have adopted is nurtured by nature, whereby the integration of blue and green elements with the built environment fosters diversity and a richness of experience. We also managed to communicate the 20-minute neighborhood concept in conjunction with our own concept. So with regard to our housing development, our team have implemented a farmstead concept by identifying some historic farmstead elements into our design and integrating traditional morphological characteristics of the existing buildings into our new structures. So this slide represents the figure and ground plan for Monifeed, where we have identified 3 potential sites suitable for housing development. And having the limited space within Monarchy, we look towards the peripheries to build for the built environment, to create a new community with distinctive features. In addition to the housing design, we have proposed some development plans for the town, like pedestrianizing the high street, converting the large car park to a village square, and establishing a community hub in the beachfront, which could boost tourism activities. Also, we have identified, the identified locations are within a 20-minute distance from the existing facilities and our high street. This is our site. So we try to execute the development of phase 1 site, incorporating our innovative concepts and ideas, making a significant milestone in the progression of the identified sites, as it lays the groundwork for potential future developments. So this site is strategically located in close proximity to the Ashludi farm, situated between the Panmure Street and the Barry Road, and conveniently borders an existing community garden. So our site features have an established community garden and a pedestrian path adorned with 2 rows of trees that interconnect both the routes and have an existing burn. So the perimeter of the site was delineated by linking the extant trees situated along the boundaries. Here we have the figure and ground plan for our design, which illustrates the existing community garden and its extension in our proposal, along with an open community market. So our site is having a flat nature because it is prone to flooding, but it is prone to flooding due to the proximity to the burn. To mitigate this, we have proposed the implementation of a SUD along with the commercial building as the focal point of our site. So we have also aligned the clusters and created a primary access way that could direct attention towards the central point. So the areas between the clusters are designated as semi-public spaces, while the inner houses having private gardens and the outer one having common spaces. So this is a 3D that shows how we have designed our site. So we have primary site connections with particular emphasis on the common building for services, like denoted by the red color. And the building provides a variety of facilities such as supermarkets, restaurants, administration space for the garden. And additionally, the edges of the site incorporate green and blue integrations, while the edges interfacing with the existing buildings feature green buffering. And we also have a neighborhood park that has been incorporated along the existing rows of trees, which could enhance the site's overall aesthetic appeal. We also have done a design on our the type of houses. So we have an information providing the number of units and the bedrooms for each offers. Also, the land area spanning about 7.58 hectares and a total of 197 housing units has been developed by us with an additional commercial block over there, and it's about 30 units per hectare. We have gone into detail of one of the clusters, which we conducted a comprehensive zoning analysis, and it includes the allocation of space within each unit, and we have provided our parking for each unit as well, shared parking pockets in each cluster. To summarize our design on Monifeed, we have the presence of a shared path that connects both roads, another shared path that links the northern green area to the southern neighborhood road, an upcoming expansion of the community gardens, the provision of two separate access points for pedestrian and cycling, and which features green and blue elements and even encompasses the neighborhood parking. So these are some perspectives of our suggested locations based on our proposed concept. Based on the 20-minute neighborhood concept, like we have identified existing facilities such as shops, educational institutions, and religious spaces within a 1-mile radius of our proposed housing site. Additionally, we have also proposed provisions for shops and cafes, community space within our site also. Like as per our research, it's like the current ratio of 1 medical practice per 10,000 people may not suffice for the projected increase in population after the completion of phases 2-3 in Monifith. So therefore, we are planning to propose a new GP facility in our other proposal in Moniki, which could elevate the potential like pressure on the existing medical practice in Monifith. This is Moniki. Like with regards to our project site, it has an added advantage of an existing railway line that can serve as a central access. After conducting our assessment and all, we identified available land along the railway that was suitable for development. Our plan was to enhance the site with essential amenities that are currently lacking in Moniki. But Moniki already have an established country park, a school, and a community space. And we intend to improve the overall quality of the location. Also, on the sides of our site, there are extensive clusters of trees that serve as a natural boundary formation, which we have managed to integrate into our property. This illustrates the proposed structure and the caliber of their interior spaces alongside the communal gardens and buildings depicted in red. Also, our design endeavors to seamlessly integrate the pre-existing greens and blue elements in our proposed plan. The service facilities are characterized by a distinct red color and are designed with the 2 adjacent edges in green, enabling seamless integration into our site. These facilities are constructed using a combination of green and blue perforations. Also, we ensure that they complement and merge seamlessly with the existing building also. These are the perspectives of the suggested places, like based on our concept. Moniki and Monifith are 2 distinct locations with different amenities. Moniki in particular has a limited range of services with only 1 cafe, and within a 1 kilometer of radius. To address this deficiency, we propose the implementation of a community garden, community market, multiple supermarkets, and variety of essential retail establishments. And in addition to all of this, a medical facility. So we hope that this medical facility will not only serve the residents of Moniki, but also those in the nearby areas of Wellbank and New Beginning. If we were to incorporate like the proposed development plan for Monifith into an existing area, we envision creating an active and vibrant hub that would benefit like not only the immediate neighborhood, but also the surrounding communities. These are some pictures that we took during our field trip to Angus, and our design offers a range of benefits catering to different age groups and their specific needs. So children can avail a safer route and designated areas for recreational activities, while dog owners can benefit from neighborhood spaces designed for walking and biking with their pets. For adults, our design provides community spaces for closer connection and social interaction. And furthermore, for the old individuals can benefit from user-friendly spaces that promote socialization in diverse environments. Thank you. We had a lot of fun doing this project, and we appreciate you taking your time to listen. Thank you.
Thank you, and well done. Thank you. Can I suggest we move to the third one? We're going to look at Kelas. Hajar, please, if you want to share your screen.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hajar Ali, and today I'll be presenting for our group, Group 9, and we'll be talking about the extension of Kelas as an innovation hub or an eco-village. So we wanted to talk a little about the history of Kelas. It actually goes way back, and it was part of an area that's called a parish of Moors, and not just Kelas, but also a nearby village called Bucklerheads. Both were very famous for their fertile soils, resulting in a community around agriculture. And also, this is where the Church of Moors was built. As we can see here, we have a timeline on how Kelas have evolved through the years, and we can see how the houses have developed along the road. And now the current population of Kellis is about 167 people, and there are about 40 or 42 homes. Again, we have looked at some historical buildings in Kellis. We have found that these are 3 houses that were built in the 1800s, and here we have it compared on the other side. There hasn't been many changes, but just some extensions have been added to these houses. Here we go to our some of our aims and objectives for this project. We really want to do this as an eco-village, so that can mean a sustainable local food production, self-sufficient community, and also have a wide range of homes with affordable options and connectivity. But connectivity not just between Kellis and nearby villages like Bucklerheads or a city like Dundee, but also connectivity between the current development in Kellis and our site, and also connectivity within our site as well. And finally, landscape, so that means the preservation of on-site natural ecosystems. We've also looked at some policies that we found were very relevant to us. We looked at the rural planning policy to 2050. One of the objectives that have caught our attention was the need to take into account the assets and opportunities that the area can provide. And that's what we did with Kellis. And also some challenges, and one challenge that have also caught our attention was how to make rural areas livable. So what can be done to achieve that? And also, we have looked at Angus Council design requirements, since we are planning in the Angus area. And here we have looked at some case studies that have helped us. One of the book that we really liked was The Anatomy of the Villages. We have noticed 3 villages that we took some inspiration from to do our master plan and our ideas. These included Gainford in Durham and Milburn and Coxwold in Yorkshire. Here we have our concept design. Now, this is the very early stages of our design process. Here we have the proposed site in Kellis. We have 3 parts. How we divided the site was in 3 parts. Each we got inspiration from certain areas. So the first one, we wanted to do a street village along the road, so linear development. This was taken from Kellis itself and how it developed along the through the years. And then here we want to do development along the burn and the church over here. This was taken again from Gainford, Durham, where they maintained views of their assets. And finally, we want to develop a green core in the middle. This was taken inspiration from Milburn, where they have a green core and houses developed around that core. We were previously asked for 900 homes or more than 900 homes in the brief, but unfortunately for this, because of the size of Kellis, we just decided to stick with 329 units, just to preserve the rural feeling that Kellis has. We think if we increase the density, it might ruin that and take away the identity that Kellis is famous for. So we wanted to, in the future, implement our idea of extending green corridors to other areas of Angus, like Wellbanks or Forbes of Kilkenny, or New Biggings, like we did between Kellis and Bucklerheads, which will be shown later in the master plan. Now, we looked at 3 different historical farmsteads surrounding Kellis to use the cluster layouts to help us inform the design as a way to increase density, while also just maintaining the character of the area. Here's a more zoomed in version of the 2 farmstead to see what makes the area unique. What we really liked about these farmsteads is how they used the enclosed courtyards to make semi-private areas, and the orientation of them as well to create private and semi-private spaces. Now here on the right, we have the West Mains of Gagey farmstead. It was actually converted into a 4-unit building. This just shows us the demand for this kind of housing and the opportunity to use this typology to develop new housing in the area. Again, here we have observing Kellis. We wanted to look at it from different views just to show us how or what is the area that we're dealing with. And again, here we looked at the edges and borders just to learn more in depth of small details of what the site that we're working with and what is surrounding this site. We also looked at a book called Buildings of Scottish Countryside. This helps us visualize what are the characteristics of the buildings that the buildings or homes might have. So some things like types of roofs and chimneys all helped us visualize what kind or how the houses might look like. Now here we measured the proximity of Kellis and surrounding villages. What we noticed is this is the proposed site, and if a person was to walk from the beginning of the site towards the end, it would take that person a maximum of 7 or 8 minutes, as well as we calculated if a person was to be in the existing part of Kellis wanting to go into that site, it would take that person a maximum of 5 or 4 minutes. It's a very close proximity, and that helped us really to implement the concept of the 20-minute neighborhood, because everything is in close proximity to each other. We also looked at what kind of facilities in Kellis. Unfortunately, there isn't any facilities in Kellis, so we looked at what are the nearby facilities in Kellis that can be reached via walking, cycling, bus, or car. What we noticed is there isn't anything that is within walking distance less than 20 minutes, and by cycling, there isn't any cycling routes that are safe for a person to go from Kellis to these kind of facilities. So that gave us the chance to wanting to develop facilities within Kellis just to make residents, the current and the new ones, remove the need to go out to reach these facilities. Here, as we said before, there isn't any, there is a low connectivity in Kellis, unfortunately, right now. So there is only one bus stop, and the buses, it only runs 3 to 4 services a day. And here is our master plan. We want to have enjoying local rural living. We created 10 clusters. These are apartments, and then 2-bedroom houses, 3-bedroom houses, and finally 4-bedroom houses with a total of 329 units. We wanted also to look at some sectional elevation, just to give us a feel of how the houses would look like with the kind of topography we're dealing with. Fortunately for us, we're dealing with a slight slope, so the site is pretty much or easy access, to say. And here is our first phase. This is phase 1, is a total of 84 units. In phase 1, we're proposing a development of 84 units along the main road in a linear development. As you can see here, we have 3 clusters, all having private or semi-private courtyards. And these, we also have semi or detached homes. They're very similar to the ones in Kellis right now. They have their private parking and private gardens as well. And we can see here the first phase utilizes the already existing road, reducing the effort needed to create a new one. So it's also a little set back from the road, just with green space, and is lower density than the following phases, just to minimize the visual disruption to the existing residents. We also wanted to integrate the existing green to better connect the existing Kellis with the new development. As well, as you can see here in yellow, this is a public path network that prioritizes the pedestrian and incorporates a lot of greenery to create a connection and enjoyable space for the current and future residents. Here we have the highlighted red, as you can see here, is a local shop. We place it in this area especially just to be very accessible to the current and also new residents of Kellis. Moving on to phase 2. This is a more higher density. It has 115 units. It's along the burn and the church. We have here a new kind of typology of housings. They're L-shaped. They were actually inspired from the types of housings in Bucklerheads. Here we want to utilize the assets of the burn, the greenery, and the church by maximizing their view. And again, just create an enjoyable place for people. So the area surrounding the church up to the top is a conservation area. That's why we haven't developed much here. And we've also wanted to set back a little bit the houses just to consider future flooding possibilities. Here is another view of the houses along the burn. You can see here the private parking spaces we're proposing, and just another view of these houses over there. Finally, we have phase 3. This final phase is a 130 units and extends along the burn and both sides of the main road. This is to Bucklerheads to connect this community to better support our proposed facilities. Again, just focus on public pedestrian space and integrating the green. Here's a more detailed slide about our cluster analysis. This is one of the clusters that was shown in phase 1. Here we have private gardens, semi-public seating area, communal area, and just planters. Now, going into our green core. For the green core that we have proposed here in our master plan, we have decided not to develop the core for residential buildings, but instead just embrace Kellis's agriculture background just to create a space for food production, a community in the model of a community-supported agriculture. Now, this model, what we were thinking of is where the responsibilities and rewards of farming are shared between farmers and consumers. There are different types of community-supported agriculture, but one of the most common is we're proposing is where the community members agree to purchase shares ahead of the harvest so that the farmer has the money to invest in the growing season with customer base who will later receive regular produced boxes in return. Now, this plan will not only benefit Kellis actually, but will also benefit the whole Angus area, I think. And aside from that, also, aside from increasing this healthy, locally produced food, community-supported agriculture, it also can provide a range of indirect benefits, such as improving biodiversity, reducing loneliness and isolation within the local population, and just enhancing the economy. We also want the core to be somewhere food is produced, as well as a place for a community to gather and learn about agriculture and ecology. And some facilities that would be included is the community hub, where remote work can be done, community gathering and classes, and also it can include a cafe or a tool share, a farm stand, and sell local produce. Moving on to the biodiversity, we want the integration of the existing green to create green networks and wildlife habitat. It's an important way we found our plans will help to improve the biodiversity. We also want to incorporate we have tried to incorporate the concept of usable green, visible green, and edible green, like the locally food produced that we talked about. As well, it can have the habitat would include a bug motel, bat boxes, and bird houses, and just overall enhancing biodiversity. We also looked at the data in the life of our community just to help us envision what this development, who will it benefit and how can they benefit from. So we looked at types of people who might benefit from this. So family, a senior citizen, professional, and a student. Finally, we wanted to look at the impact of our project or our plan. We found what would happen if our project did take place. It would have a positive social impact. So it would include inclusive and accessible people first design, also enhance the economic activity just due to the new job opportunities within Kellis, and have a positive environmental impact just because we're preserving and enhancing nature networks to benefit the biodiversity. Finally, we wanted to ask ourselves what would happen if our project did not take place. We think this would contribute to the urban sprawl as seen in other developments like Dundee or Montefiore. It could continue to developing the way that, to prioritize car use. It would lose that identity that Kellis have, which is loss of agricultural land, and finally missing the opportunity to make Kellis a connection within Angus. Thank you.
Thank you. And we've just got Kevin Murray to join the room. Kevin will provide a summary of the work, and we are running a little bit short on time. So after Kevin, I'll bring Josh straight on and we'll do a joint Q&A at the very end. So I'll just pass over to Kevin just now. And
thanks, Trevor.
There we go.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, can you hear me fine, Kevin?
Really just to say thanks to the students for the enormous amount of effort. I hope you found that interesting. That's only 3 groups out of 10 who covered 5 different topics. This year builds on the work that we have done over several years, some of which colleagues like Irene have been involved in at Perth. We've also looked at Blairgowrie, various parts of Dundee that you've seen in the transect that Hussam showed. But this was a lot harder for a range of reasons because of the location, the scattered nature of the settlements, and the complexity, because they weren't joined up, let's say, on major bus routes, and certainly not other than Montefiore on a rail line. You see the students out there, as every year. We're often out doing this in challenging times of year, but fortunately the weather was clear when we were out on site. If we move to the next slide, Anthony,
it did throw up something interesting, because there was a plan for this area, or part of the Tay Valley plan covered this area. And if you look at the middle one there, you'll see that Wellbank was the big node there. But New Biggin and Moniki were actually shown on it, although I don't think Kellis is. But what they were planning 75 years ago would have been a much more agricultural facing community, maybe quarrying and things like that. But if you think about the digital age we're in and the mobility, it's a completely different world that we're planning for. And also, obviously, Dundee's a completely different place as the major neighbour too. If we go to the next slide, I think what between the work that the three teams did, you had Billy's team show the spatial structure with the networking of villages and the linkage and the clustering. You had Lakshmi's team show that you could have a double approach with Moniki and Monifeith and get variety and diversity with one at the north and one at the south. And you had that distinctive approach to Kellis, very sensitive one, with a sort of green street village, which feels it might have grown organically over 100 or 200 years. So there are different approaches. And I think what they did is throw up some questions about whether and how the 20-minute neighbourhood works in a rural urban fringe area, because it clearly works more strongly within pre-1920s areas that have got higher densities, stronger networks, like inside Dundee and next to Monifeith. Broughty Ferry is probably one of the strongest neighbourhoods in Scotland. And I don't just mean that in terms of socioeconomic wealth. The actual layout of the place and the use and the functions are very strong. But it's much more challenging here. It's more dispersed. And also demographically, it's an older community. So there is an issue about once one gets out to the suburban areas and beyond, it is more challenging to make the 1920s neighbourhood work functionally, but one can still try to live locally. The kinds of things we come up against is the infrastructure provision, both physical and social, is less. The development and energy costs are higher, which tends to push towards a suburban type model that the house builders might want to impose, but they are not as positive and organic and sensitive as that last example you just saw from Kellis. So there is a design challenge in terms of placemaking and quality, as well as the functional challenge in terms of some of the human dimensions that Irene set out in her opening presentation. Next couple of bullets, please. So one of the key issues that we came across, and many of you on this call I know who either live or work in rural areas are fully aware of this, particularly if you're away from the main road, bus and train routes, is access to services. So there are certain things, there are schools, there's a certain level of shops and so on, but it's pretty basic in these areas. And you heard the same about the bus service. People will want to go to the big city, as it were, for nights out, for culture, for shopping, but also for things like hospitals, hospital appointments, and for education. So there's an issue about movement and access to higher order services. And there's no doubt that people need that access to particularly public transport, even if in some places that might be a community bus rather than a normal service bus. And Anthony, if we just go to the last two, please. So we have to be honest in terms of the policy and the approach, is that in rural areas, vehicles generally will be needed and traffic will be generated. And what I thought the teams did very ably was look at cycling and walking options to get to local services, to get to local leisure and facilities as best they could. But that for many people, including those who aren't able-bodied, they will still need vehicle access in some forms. So what we saw across the model is huge set of variations in the self-sufficiency of the settlement and settlement size. And I think that applies particularly to people with younger families in the households who need to get to creches, to schools, maybe to play sport, whatever it might be. So there are a whole range of issues there that are slightly different and perhaps easier to provide in the larger settlement of Monifeith. So I hope there's some themes there to explore, but I think we'd certainly endorse in this what Irene was saying at the beginning about living locally. It's about giving people positive choices. And I know, because I also work in Oxford, how the toxic nature of the anti 20-minute the sort of conspiracy theory people are in this, and it's hugely controversial now, and something that was meant to be very supportive of local communities. But it's certainly easier in bigger and more intense urban areas, and it's a bigger challenge. But it doesn't mean, because of that challenge, that we should give up. So thanks, well done to all the students. I think you did great work in this in really challenging circumstances.